Okay, so this is our experimental language lab. Welcome to our Language of the Prophets series. We are going to be doing a language lab today, and I have two ideas for how this will work. For one, I want it to be like a study hall. When I used to teach back in Texas, we had with our synagogue different levels of Hebrew, right? That I had set up there, and so we had different teachers for the lower levels, and then on Thursday nights I had a study hall. So I lived close to the synagogue, so it wasn't too hard just going down there. And anyone who was struggling with their exercises, whatever class they were in, they could come and they could come to the study hall and get help. Now, this study hall is limited to our intermediate students, so it's not exactly like that. So what I want is I want to open it primarily, first and foremost, to questions, especially about assignments, if any of you have, and we could kind of go into that. And if you don't have any immediate questions and you just want to work through, I have some exercises we can go through with actual different verses from all over the Bible, right? Different places that I thought we could walk through just very slowly, and we could talk about the grammar. And I've selected verses that you should know the vocabulary for these. So basically, what I did was I found verses where all of the words in the verse, except some of them, the first few, it's all of the words. All of the words are very high frequency count words. So that means they occur at least 850 times in the Bible. So you should know these words. You might not recognize them in the form that they're in, and so that's something we need to shore up, right? We need to improve your recognition. When you know a word, you want to be able to recognize it, right? Even if the ending has changed or something like this. So that can be an issue. And boy, I remember for me that was an issue in Russian when I was studying Russian. The people just talk, and you'd learn a word, but in Russian, the words, the nouns, and let's take the adjectives. The adjectives have 6 different case endings they can have, and they can be singular or plural, and they can be masculine, feminine, or neuter, right? So that's what, like 3 times 6, it's 24, and then times 2, so it's like 44 different endings. I mean, sometimes it's the same, but they're for different cases. So, you might not recognize the word. You thought you knew it, and then you see it, and it's totally different. So it's less of a problem in Hebrew, but it's still a problem for students sometimes to recognize the word. So the first couple of exercises I have for you, they're all of the words you should know by now. And so if you don't, this will be a good kind of gut check. Oh, I better learn this word. The rest of the exercises, they have more words, they're longer verses, but there will be one word in there that occurs less than 850 times in the entire Bible. So you might still know all the words, but the threshold is very low. You should know the vocabulary of almost all of these, if not all. Okay? So, first off, did you have any questions so far before I get started? All right. I really hope this will help you guys. So here we go. By the way, welcome to the auditors who are here. You're very welcome to be here, even if you're not in the intermediate class. You can pick up some stuff by induction. So here we have 2 verses. I will read the first one and translate it for you. And I think today I'll probably be reading all of these for the interest of time. That way we don't have to go slow waiting for people to read and stuff, since we only have 1 hour slotted for our language lab right now. We can change this in the future. We're kind of working this out as we go, okay? So I welcome your inputs on how to adjust the lab. So this very first one, let me do laser pointer. And I'm not going to tell you the verses until after, right? Because I don't want people looking them up. Okay, so the first one says, Vaishma Elohim et Naakatam. Let's look at that first part. I'm pretty sure you guys know these first 3 words. Who wants to jump in? What is Vaishma Elohim et?
Adonai listened to.
That's right. Although we'll probably say God in this case. Elohim. Elohim heard. Elohim listened to, right? Yeah, very good. And what is the nuance in with this word Shema when we talk about God Shema'ing? Does it mean that sometimes he doesn't Shema, like he literally doesn't know what was said? Or is this the only case where he knew what was said, or is there some other nuance to the word when we apply it to God, when God hears, when Adonai hears? Anybody remember?
He heard or he heeded.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's kind of like he did, right? Yeah. In fact, if you guys remember, we talked about before the traditional Jewish blessing. By the way, I apologize for the microphone. My normal microphone is not working at the moment, so I'm using a cheapo, just what's built in the headset. I hope it's okay. So I think it's just a cable issue. So he when we ask God for something and He answers our prayer, the prayer has been answered. It's traditional to say, Baruch Atah Adonai, blessed are you Adonai, Eloheinu, our God, Melech Haolam, the King of the universe, or the King of the world, however you want to translate that. And we say Asher, who Shome'ah, hears tefillah, prayer, right? So again, the English doesn't do it justice. What? He doesn't always hear? Or you only say that he hears when you answered your prayer? The idea is exactly what Ate said. It's that he decides to do it. He agrees. He's answered the prayer really. So this word that translates as hears in Hebrew, it's really got a different nuance with God. It's not just that he hears. It's not like if a pagan is saying, help me, God." It's not that he didn't hear what they said, right? He can hear everything around the world, right? He knows what people are saying, right? But we say that he doesn't hear their prayer, meaning it's got this other nuance, meaning he's not going to answer their prayer, right? He doesn't want to answer their prayer. He's not inclined to do what they're asking. So hearken, that was well put. It's kind of unfortunate that we have to go to this kind of older sounding hearken to really bring it into English, yeah? Some would say obey the prayer, but that makes God sound like our kind of cosmic bellhop, so we don't want to do that. Okay? And now we have this na'akatam. I don't expect you to know this word, so I will just tell you real quick. But do you recognize any part of the word? Can you tell me what part of it means? Even if you do not know the word itself, tell me something about this word. Let's pick it
Is
apart.
it nif'al, imperfect?
You know that's a very good guess. Very good guess. In this case, it's not. But that's a good guess because you saw the noon and you think it's a prefix there. Yeah, it's actually a noun.
Mhm.
It's actually a noun. But that was a great guess. What else? Anything else about it that we can maybe figure out? See, here's how we
It
know
is
it's.
a
Yeah.
noun
Uh huh.
after the verb, so it's an object
Yes. Very
because
good.
of the dd.
Yup.
Plural.
Okay. Well, it's not plural, but it is an object. It is an object, right? Object. And
Object
hold on. And
noun.
you said this is the DDO, right? The definite direct object marker. So
Yes.
we know it's definite, right? So we know it's definite. Very good. Okay, so if it's definite, is there a definite article on it? Is the word the on it? There's no the, right? There's no the.
Yes. No.
Okay, so what are the other ways that something can be definite? You can either have one, you can have the article, right? The article, which we usually see as ha, ha at the beginning of the word, right? Okay, that's the.
Yes.
Okay, what's another way that a word can be definite?
A pronominal suffix
Yes,
at the end of the
good,
word. At the end of
very
the
good,
word.
very good. A pronominal suffix, very good. Okay, and the final way, the third way that a word can be definite,
Proper noun.
a proper
There's
noun,
a
proper
proper
noun,
noun.
exactly. Okay, so I will tell you, this is not a name, right? God did not hear the person called Na'akatam. Okay, it's not a name, so it's not a proper noun. It's not a proper noun, so it's not that one. Erk. And there's no article, so it must be that there's a pronoun suffix, right? So what is the pronoun suffix on this word?
Am.
Very good, very good. Okay, what does um mean when it's a suffix?
Plural.
Yeah, that's right. It's plural. Okay, good. Plural. Third person, first person, second person. What kind of plural?
Third.
Third. Third.
Ano?
Yeah, that's right. Third person. And is it masculine or feminine?
Um,
Masculine.
Very
masculine.
good, very good.
Atem.
All right, that's
Oo.
good. So third masculine plural. What's the English word for this?
They.
Them.
Yeah, they. But if it's a suffix, it's there, right? There, usually there. Okay.
There.
Okay. So now let's look at this. Even though you do not know this vocabulary word yet, let's look at this. Then, okay. So coming back to the first word, Vaishma Elohim. Then God heard, or and God heard there something, whatever this word is. So you might even be able to figure out what it is just in the context. What is it now?
Is
It's not.
it kata? Kataat or sin?
The word is not akka. It's not akka. but it's kind of a less common word than you've
Oh,
had to memorize yet. Na'aka. It's not prayer. It's not tefillah.
Nakat.
Huh?
Nakat.
Petition.
Nakat.
Is petition.
What was the English? I can't hear the English word you're saying.
Petition.
Okay.
I'm guessing.
Now that good guess. The word for petition is techina, but it's a good guess. Good guess. Okay, so now you know it's not prayer. It's not petition. Remember what happened. The people were just the people were forced into dire slavery. The Bible tells us it's avodah kasha. This is in Egypt. I'll say it's in Egypt, which is back-breaking labor. Okay, they're back-breaking labor. And so, what do people usually do? How do they relate to God, communicate to God when they're in a dire situation? Like maybe the Uyghurs in China, right? For example, or Jews in the concentration camps, or slaves under Egypt that have to work everything in the
Oh,
desert sun.
they shout,
Yeah,
they cry to
their
God.
yeah, that's very good.
They
So
their
cry to
cries.
God.
very good. So you could guess logically that this word is some kind of shouting or crying, right? It's a desperation, and you'd be right. It turns out that the word actually means there. It's like a groaning or a calling out, right? A groaning. So we'll just go with groaning, a cry or a groaning. So cry or outcry maybe is better. Outcry or groaning. So even without knowing this word, you can figure it out. So this will start to happen to you more and more. The more vocabulary you know, the more you'll be able to identify what a word means without even looking it up in the lexicon. Oftentimes, parallelism will help. The context is going to help. So you're exactly right. It is a plea. It's like an emphatic plea. Please, right? So and God heard their groaning, their outcry. Very good. Probably groaning is a bit
Is
better.
the Rob?
Yes.
Is the na is that indicating please,
Where do you see
or
na?
is it
Oh, I see. I see.
na the
Very interesting. Yeah, yeah. That would
yes.
be it's interesting. That would be possible if it was not connected to the rest of the word, right? So I'm glad that you're seeing patterns like that. She's talking about the first part of the word, the na, right? Since na is usually please. Yeah. In this case, it's not because the word is actually na'aka, na'aka, right? Na'aka. That's just a word in and of itself, which is like
Okay,
which is like a groaning or an outcry. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. So let's continue on. That was good. Okay, hold on just a second. My program shut. There we go. Okay. Vayizkol Elohim et burrito. Okay, and no, it's not a burrito. He didn't want a burrito. Okay, so what is Vayizkol Elohim? What does that mean?
and God remembered.
Yes, yes. And God remembered. Sorry, that's
His
kind of soft.
covenant.
Yes.
His covenant.
Oi, oi. I touched the screen. His covenant. Very good. Oh, what happened here? Sorry. Ah. I'm also sitting upstairs right now. I thought let's try this more comfortable than when I'm downstairs, because my thoughts are, oh no, don't show the verse. My thoughts are, if we can do this, make it more comfortable, then maybe we can even have more language labs, just kind of impromptu. Who wants to do a language lab, sort of thing? Okay, and that's very good. So God, God, of course. I probably don't have to write that. DDO, Brito. So she said his covenant. So that's good. You recognize the suffix O, right? O is third person masculine singular. In other words, his. Did everybody understand that? Any questions? I don't want anybody left behind. Burrito. So burit is covenant, right? And O means his. It's like nya in Tagalog, right? Suffixes in Hebrew, they work a lot like
Yes.
Tagalog. This is, I think, harder for English speakers to get, right? So you could say, if burit was a Tagalog word, we could say, he remembered burit nya, right? He remembered his covenant. But instead of nya, we say O, right? Okay, good. All right. Et Avraham, right? That's clear what that is. Et Yitzchak, okay, that's clear what that is. Ve'et Yaakov. What is the ve in ve'et?
And with
Not with. These are actually DDOs.
Adidios.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And Jacob.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Very good. Good, good. Jacob, very good. Okay, so and nice. All right. Okay. By the way, notice there. Look at all the objects of the verb. Right. The verb is vaiskol. He remembered, but yet we have Brito, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. We have four objects of that verb. So Hebrew can do this sometimes. Now, I want to come back to this word, vayizkor, zachar, to remember. So, again, we need to get used to this. This is something that can be very useful for those of you who are teaching. I know some of you, you teach, you like to disciple. That's excellent. So something you can trickle down already to your students is that when they see in their English Bible or their Tagalog Bible something like, we already discussed, God heard, right? They need to think about it, that it doesn't really mean he heard. It's not like a tree fell and he heard the sound, right? Or the people are, help us. And it's just the fact that they're screaming that he hears, right? It's that he's answering, right? So here we have, in parallel, we also have Vayizkor, Yizkor, and he remembered. Did he forget? Yeah, I think it's Rosh. Oh no, it's not Rashi. The Rashbam. The Rashbam says in the Torah, not here, but earlier in Genesis. So did he forget? So are we to understand that God forgets and then remembers? No, God never forgets. Right? He never forgets. Right? When we say, "Please do not forget me, Lord," we're not saying that he literally, in his mind, there's not enough room. It's like us that we forget a vocabulary word or something. That makes no sense at all. He created the universe, right? He invented DNA. How could such a mind forget, right? So again, you can see that the word has a slightly different meaning in the Hebrew than it does in English, right? Forget is about as close as we can get in English, but that's really not what it means to remember, to forget when God is doing it. When we say he remembered, it means that he's springing into action. The sages say it means that he's going to take action now. When he remembers his covenant, when he remembers his Avraham, when he remembers, etc., 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 this means that God is acting. You could put a little asterisk there in your translation and say he decided to act. Okay? Everybody got that? Little nuance from Zachar. And this works many times with any kind of verb that has to do with the senses, right? Smelling, hearing, seeing, right? For example, we say in the Birkat HaKohanim, in the Aaronic benediction, right? May the Lord turn his face towards you, right? Why would we want God to turn his face towards us? And God invented this blessing. He's the inventor of that particular blessing, right? When the priest blessed the people, right? The reason you want God to turn his face towards you is because you want him to see you. Why do you want him to see you? Does he not see you normally? Does it mean he's not aware of your actions normally? Of course, he's aware of your actions normally. Again, the inventor of DNA, he's aware of your actions. But when God sees, it's got a different little nuance here. The idea is he's responding to your situation, right? With blessing. If you're on the right path, with blessing. If you're in sin, then maybe you don't want him to see you, right? Turn your face from my sin, etc., etc. Okay? All right. So let's continue on here. So any kind of thing that has to do with knowledge or mental activity, when we apply that to God, we need to just stop and think about it for a second. Is it really what the translation says it is? Is it really remembering? Is it really, for example, when a bit earlier in the verse, actually it's coming down later. I'll stop. We'll get there in a second. In the next verse, we'll get there. Okay. So continuing on with our next verse, and this is the one that I've slotted for you guys. Actually, I just wanted to set the scene. 25. Every word in here you should know, so you should be able to translate this. So let's see. So I will read it, and then you guys translate. Vayach Elohim et bnei Yisrael. Vayeda Elohim. Okay. So what is Vayach?
God saw, and God saw,
Okay. Very good.
and God
Very
saw.
good. Very good. And we were just talking about that, right? About him seeing and what that really means. Okay. So the verb. What kind of a verb is this?
From Ra'ah,
Yes. Yes.
Hal,
Yep, those answers are all correct. It's imperfect. It's from ra'ah. It's called. That's all true. So it's ra'ah, right? So the hey is gone at the end, right? So the verb is actually reish, aleph. So again, this is one of those examples. I think you guys are getting pretty good at this kind that I was talking about, where when we learn another language, you might know the word, but maybe you don't recognize it when you see it, right? So we want to kind of loosen that up so that you can recognize whenever you see it, so you can feel more confident with the language. So ra'ah is what we call a lamed hey verb, or a third position hey, right? So this is the first position, this is second, and the hey is in the third, right? And so lamed hey verbs, or third position hey, the hey often disappears, as it has here, right? He's gone. So it's good you recognize it. It would be a mistake to think that this is the verb, to think that Yod Resh Aleph is a verb, because then it would mean then God feared the children of Israel, right? Which is sacrilege. All right, so clearly it's not that, it's Ra'ah. Okay, so then God saw et Bnei Israel. He saw the children of Israel, right? Which is us
The
today. That's
children.
yeah, he saw them, which is us today, right? And also back then. So meaning that he's focusing on their problem. He's we already established his core. He's about to act, right? So there's an interesting pattern that's happening, and oftentimes you'll see the symmetry in the Hebrew language, not the language itself, but the way that the Bible reveals things is just amazing. The symmetry, it's like every single prophet is an amazing poet almost, or an amazing writer. The way that they phrase the things, the language they use, of course, being inspired by the Holy Spirit. So first we have this word Shema, and then we've got Yizkor, and then we've got Yara, and then the final inclusio you're going to get to is this one when we get down here, okay? And these are showing the stages of God responding to the needs of his people. Okay, so then God saw, or we could just say, and God saw, probably not then, and God saw the Bnei Israel, Vayeda Elohim. Okay, what is Yeda?
From Yada.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's from Yada. It's from Yada. So Yada,
And God no. And God knew.
exactly, and God knew. Yeah, this is actually when we go through the Torah portions, and whenever I come across this one, I usually get weepy when I read this. It's just if you think about it, it's quite powerful. Yeah. So the verb is Yada. By the way, for the auditors, this is just a cursive dalet. My intermediate students allow me to do that. All right, so Yada, so some draw it like that, right? More curly or whatever. Okay, so Yada, he knew, right? So Elohim knew. So this is actually quite profound. I remember one time I went to I went to meet with some Holocaust survivors who were artists, and during the Holocaust, they actually scrounged to find ways to do art, right? They would hide their art in the walls. They would hide it, and they were privileged. They were at a slightly better concentration camp. It wasn't Auschwitz or Dachau or one of these others. It was actually a camp that the Red Cross would come in every once in a while. Of course, they let the Germans know in a month. Okay, we'll be there in 30 days to examine the camp. So the Germans had time. They'd feed the people better then, and they'd give them toilet paper, these sorts of things. And then when the Red Cross was gone, all right, back to having kind of a bad life, right? So, so the but what so they had access to more materials in those times than other Jews did. And so what they did was they would make the art. They'd hide it in the floor. They'd put it up in the ceilings in the attic. They tried to find all these ways to hide their artwork. And I asked them, why was it so important to you? I mean, what did that do for you to do art, to make art, right? I mean, I understand they were artists before this, but why? And one of the persons answered and said, this old lady, she answered, she said, because the Germans, I should say that the Nazis, they told us that no one would ever know what happened to us here. And that seemed worse than all of the punishment, that nobody would know about their suffering, right? This lie that no one's ever going to know even, right? You're suffering for no reason, basically. But they wanted people to know. And so the artwork was their way of some hope that maybe someday someone would know what had happened to them, how they had died, etc. Of course, they didn't die. These artists were liberated, and they're able to share some of the art that they had done. It's quite amazing. And so this is part of the human condition. When we suffer, we want someone to know about it, right? So how much more so if the person who knows is God himself. And that's why I think this number 4, it's a building crescendo in these two verses, really very powerful, to find out that Vayeda Elohim, that God himself, he knew, he was compassionate, he understood, he felt for the suffering of his people. Okay, so you see this nice pattern, Shema, right? He hearkened, someone said, right? He hearkened. Vayizkor, he prepared to take action. Vayah, he saw their circumstance, he saw it all, and he knew. Right? Any questions?
Amen. Beautiful.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem, right? Baruch Hashem. By the way, feel free to take a screenshot if you like. And here's the reference. It's Exodus chapter 2, verses 24 and 25. Okay? And How does it feel that you can translate this? I mean, you saw that you can handle this, especially verse 25 was my target for you. 24 was not, but 25, we really get to the meat of it. You know all of these words. You know et, you know Ra'ah, you know Elohim, you know Banim and B'nai, you know Yisrael, you know Yada, and you know Elohim, right? So you're able to translate that entirely on your own. Okay. All right. No questions? All right, let's move on. Baruch Hashem. Okay. Oh, cool. Okay, we got about 30 minutes left. We're just making an hour for now. I might decide to do longer if you guys want to in the future. Again, we're going to be flexible on these language labs. I just want to encourage you more because really meeting once a week, I'm concerned that that might not be enough. Okay, so here, verse 13 is kind of setting the scene. And then verse 14, well, they're both good. Okay, so I'll go ahead and read again. Vayavo Adoniyahu. So this is a person. Ben Hagait. So this is one of David's sons. This is the rebellious son who had tried to take the kingdom while David HaMelech, but David the king was very old, right? So he was older than Shlomo, than Solomon. He was older than him. And so he got a bunch of people following after him. Many of the priests are following after him. The priests are blowing shofars, right? He's basically coronating himself as king, right? Okay. And so that's who Adoniyahu is, right? He's a false king. He's trying to take power. And after this was put to a stop, then we actually have this situation. So Bathsheba and Nathan the prophet, they put it to a stop, right? So Bathsheba, she comes before King David and she bows down to him. She prostrates down to the ground, right? So theologically, this is a very important point, right? It says that she's mishtachavim is the verb. She's prostrating down, okay? So this is the Hebrew word that maps to the Greek word proskuneo, which the New Testament translations in English often translate as worshipped. Worship, okay? So all of the verses in the apostolic writings that have people worshiping Yeshua, it's this word. They prostrated down, right? So this is really what the word means. It means to prostrate down kind of in humility usually before a ruler, but we also see the verb used by Abraham when he prostrates down before the pagans, the B'nai Chet, right? The sons of Chet, before he buys the cave Machpelah to bury Sarah, right? So we understand very clearly from the Hebrew foundations underneath the Greek apostolic writings that this word does not always mean worship, right? Just like when you sing a song, singing does not mean worship. Singing may be worship. Oh Lord, our Lord, how excellent is your name. Right? Clearly that's worship, right? But tell me what you'll do, what you really want to do. It's not always worship, is it? Right? It's a human activity that can be used as an instrument of showing respect, just enjoying yourself if you're singing, right? Prostrating down. Obviously, Bathsheba is not worshiping King David as a god, right? Just as those who bow down and worship, it's translated in the English Bibles, it says worship Yeshua, they are not really worshiping him. We have another word for that, which that's a whole nother lesson. I won't get into all of it. You can ask if you're curious. That means that does talk about religious worship. It's very close to serving, right? And that word comes into Greek authoreo. It's never used with Messiah. Okay, so again, this is not a talk about the Trinity or anything like this. This is not denying Yeshua's divinity or anything. Don't get upset. This is just about the Hebrew language and what it means, and so we can truly understand what the texts are saying. So previously, in just a few verses, sorry, before this, a few verses before this, Bathsheba, she bowed down, prostrated down to King David, and then Nathan the prophet, he comes in and does the same thing, and they explain what happened, and David ends the coup. He makes Solomon king, all right? So now after that, Solomon lets Adoniyahu live, right? He lets him live, and now this happens. Vayavo Adoniyahu. Then Adoniyahu came, he arrived, Adoniyahu, the son of Hagit, he came to Bathsheba, right? So that's one of David's wives. That's Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon. Aim Shlomo, right? The mother of Solomon. Vatomer, and she said, Hashalom Boecha. All right, so what's this ha here? What's that ha? Who can tell me what the ha means?
Question.
Yeah,
It's a
very good.
question.
Yeah, very good. That's right. That's right. It is. The ha is the hey interrogative. The hey interrogative, and it is exactly as you said. That is a question mark, right? More accurately, if you've ever studied Espanol, it's like the. I'm only a novice at Espanol. We had to study it in high school, but I remember there's an upside down question mark at the beginning of the sentence, right? So that's really what it's like, since it comes not at the end of the sentence in Hebrew, but at the beginning, or somewhere in between. It can be. It can be anywhere in the sentence, actually. So that's it. So she's saying, and what's boecha? Who knows what boecha is?
From bow,
Yeah, that's right.
bowe,
Yeah, that's right. Okay, and what's bo mean?
bowe,
Yeah, yeah, like kind of like your trip, right? Literally, your coming, your arrival. If we be hyper literal, your arrival. Okay, and then what does the suffix mean?
your,
That's right. Your. Very good.
your,
Your. Right. Your. So guys,
Two two F
go ahead.
two FS second person.
That's right.
Two MS. Yes.
Yes, very good.
Sorry.
No, you're correct. I know what you're thinking. Exactly. Second person masculine singular, which means you or your, right? So in this case, it is genitive. It is your. So how is your coming? And actually, what we have here, we have the boecha. This is an infinitive. It's an infinitive, but she's using it to mean a. She's using it more as like a participle, right? But it's actually an infinitive. It looks a lot like the participle, but that's what you can see. Kind of the shape I have around it, it's kind of like glowing. That's I'm marking infinitives that way. So when you see that, that's what that means. So so she's saying, "How was your trip?" Basically, right? You know, hashalom, right? Well, even in Israel today, if you want to ask how someone is doing, one of the ways you can ask, if you're talking to a man, you can say, "Ma shalom cha." How is your shalom? Right? How are you doing? Right? Okay. Vayomer shalom. Right? And he said, shalom. He said, well, he said it was good. No problems there. Okay? All right, now let's look at verse. Any questions on that verse 13? The one I'm really going to focus on is the next one. Okay? 14. Vayomer davar li elay. Pardon me, elayich. Okay, so what's Vayomer?
And he said,
Yep. Davar li.
Davar to me. Davar. And he said,
a thing,
oh,
a thing,
Is
Yeah.
it the matter
me.
to me?
I
a
think
word or a
The-
thing,
it
Or a
could be.
matter
It
to
could.
me?
It could be one of those. I think someone started to say it with the letter M. With the letter M, did someone say it?
matter,
Yeah, yeah, a matter,
matter.
a matter, a matter. Yeah,
Matter.
that's right, that's right. So let's go with that one. You could say thing, but let's say I have a problem. I have a matter. I have an issue. An issue, maybe, right? Okay, let's make it look better. Issue. I have a matter, right? You can clean it up in English as you like. I have a matter. Something to discuss, right? And what's with Lee? What does Lee mean, literally? Lee?
Of me? To
Yeah,
me?
yeah, that's right. The yod is this pronominal suffix, right? So first person, common, singular, right? Common means it's the same for females and males. So me, right? Me. There is there is a matter to me. That's how we say I have, right? Like there's nice in one of the Psalms, um, the poet says, "Hey yeah li." He's talking to God. He says, "Hey yeah." That's from hayat. To be, to exist is the imperative, right? Hey yeah li, saying, "Be mine." He's asking God to be mine, like be my God. Eliach. Eliach. Okay, so what is the suffix on this? What does that mean?
Unto you.
Yep, that's right. It means unto you. Very good. And the suffix? Tell me about the suffix. You're right. It's you.
Feminine.
Yeah.
Feminine.
Good. Feminine. So second person, feminine singular, right? Okay, good. So we don't have this in English, but they do in Hebrew. So Elayich, unto you. Vatomer. What does Vatomer mean?
And she said,
Yeah, very good. Right. So the Tav at the beginning, this is our hint that it's she said, right? It's Bathsheba talking, right? Vatomer, and she said, now we have a quote from her, then a lost word, Dabel, Dabel. Okay, so what does that mean? Dabel.
word, matter, issue.
Well, that is if it's a noun. That's davar.
Spoke.
This is a verb.
Spoke.
Almost.
Speak.
Almost. Yeah, speak, yes. Speak. Speak. Right? Like, tell me about it. Tell her about it. Tell her how you feel. Okay, so daber. This is so this is what's the binyan of this verb? What is the
Is
verbal?
it
Right?
PL?
Yeah, PL exactly.
Yeah.
PL. PL. Very good. Okay. As we see the dagash in the middle, right? That's our hint. Dagash and no prefixes, so it's PL. Okay. And what is what we would call this the mood? What is the mood of the verb? Is it perfect? Is it
The
imperfect?
imperative.
Yeah, beautiful.
Imperative.
That's right. Imperative. It's imperative, right? Speak, she says.
Speak it.
Speak.
Speak.
Speak your mind, right? All right. And then, of course, if you know the story, what happens is he goes on, he asks for Avishag. Avishag was the virgin, you remember, who's kind of like the doctor for David. He's very old. She kept him warm. And David didn't do anything with her. He didn't marry her. It's just, she remained a virgin until he died. And
Oh,
so
she's old, Rab. She's old.
she's young. Avishag is young.
Abishag.
Yeah. She's
Oh,
She's young, and the text tells us very beautiful, right? They searched the land to find a beautiful virgin to keep David warm, right? Because they didn't have electric blankets or anything like that, and he's having heating problems. So she kept him warm, right? That was her only job. And David dies, and so she's no longer David. She's up for grabs, so to speak. And Adoniyahu, he's being sneaky. This is some politics. He's trying to go behind Shlomo's back, right? And he doesn't want to ask Shlomo, he's guilty. He's guilty. He's doing something guilty, so he doesn't want to be a man and ask Shlomo definitely directly to his face. Instead, he wants to hide behind somebody else and let them ask the question for him. Right? This is kind of when you're guilty, this is what people do sometimes, right? They hide behind somebody else, ask the question for me. And that's what he's doing. He hides behind Bathsheba and he says, look, can you ask your son if he will let me marry Avishag? I'd like to have her. She's lovely. I think she'd be great. And really, this is a political maneuver. In ancient times, very often the widow or a widow of a king was seen as legitimizing whoever the next ruler was, right? So this was a big deal in Greece. In Greece, ancient Greece, really. So when the king would die, the next guy, if you could marry his widow, then that just kind of further legitimized the throne. And it was no different in the ancient Near East. To be able, in fact, there's an interesting drama that happens that's kind of sad in Egyptian history. So if you remember, um, Tutankhamun, you probably have all heard of Tutankhamun, right? The this is one of the famous discoveries in ancient Egypt. They went into the cave, and we have a wonderful account. The discovery. He looks through a hole, and the other guy says, "What do you see?" He says, "Oh, wonderful things, right? There's silver and gold." There was an unplundered cave that had the 18-year-old king Tutankhamun there, right? And he was laid to rest there with all kinds of wonders and treasures. And we learned a lot about Egypt from this find. For example, there's more silver than gold. So we learned that there was a time period in Egyptians' history where silver was more valuable than gold because they had so much gold. right? So silver actually became, which is interesting when we look at Joseph. Joseph has a silver goblet, doesn't he? And it's even an Egyptian word, his goblet, his divining goblet, his gavia, right? It's silver. And so that's lost on us today, but what that's telling readers back then, oh, it's silver even, right? It's even not gold, it's silver, right? So it's more valuable, showing how wealthy Joseph was in those times. So what happens was there's this guy called I, and I wanted the throne for himself. And so what he's doing is he's manipulating the situation, and he has Tutankhamun murdered. And he's trying to marry Tutankhamun's wife now so that he can legitimize himself. He's not a pharaoh, but he wants to say, "Look, I'm married to the wife of the pharaoh. I must be the pharaoh myself." He's trying to marry. I is trying to marry the widow from Tutankhamun. And this widow, she writes to the Hittite king. We have this letter. It's amazing. She writes to him. She says, "Please, the king has been slain. I am the queen. I'm very frightened. Send one of your sons to marry me, and I will make him king of Egypt." You understand? She understands the legitimizing power, even though it was kind of a patriarchal society, the power that the queen had. When she marries someone, that legitimizes in the people's eyes, ah, that's the king, right? Anyway, the Hittites, they didn't believe it was true, so they thought, well, let's take a chance. They sent a small force. I had troops. He slaughtered them, and he ends up marrying this poor girl, and makes himself king of Egypt, right? And so it's a similar thing happening here. This is what Adoniyahu is doing. He doesn't just have an eye for this lovely lass. Okay, he can have anyone he wants. He's a prince, right? Like he can't find a nice girl for himself. He wants this one because she was David's. And so it's an act of betrayal. And so because he's acting treacherously, he hides his question behind somebody else. He doesn't want to reveal himself. And it happens to be the queen's mother. And it's a nice, if you go on and read about this on your own, it's a nice little drama that unfurls. After Bathsheba, she says, okay, sure, I'll ask him. So she goes to her son and she prostrates down to her son. Oh no, I'm sorry, he prostrates down to her. Sorry, he prostrates down, and then he's not worshiping her, right? He's just welcoming her. And he says, "What is it, mother? What can I do for you?" And he says, "Anything you like." And then she says, "Oh yeah, so Adoniyahu, he actually wants to marry Abishag." And then Solomon just loses it. He gets so furious. What, are you kidding me? Why not just give him the kingdom itself? Because he understands what sneaky political propagandizing guy is doing by using the mother to ask the question. He didn't dare to show his face before the king because he's guilty, and the king he's worried that the king's wrath might fall on him if he understands what's going on. Unfortunately for Adoniyahu, he didn't realize just how wise Solomon was, and Solomon has him put to death. That's the end of it. That was his last chance. He's still trying to get the throne. He's dead. So, kind of an interesting story here. And so we end with Bathsheba saying, "Tabir." Any comments or questions? Okay. Not as positive and uplifting as the last slide, but still, the Bible is like this, right? Okay, that's, if you want to read about it, that's in First Kings chapter 2. Some beautiful, they should make movies about this. It'd be wonderful. I've never seen a movie. Does anybody know of a movie of Solomon where this is, it'd be a tragedy though, because we have to end with him becoming an idolater. But the part before he becomes an idolater, everything's great. You can all hear me still? Wow, nice turnout.
Yes, we hear you.
Baruch haba, welcome everyone. Okay, wonderful. Okay, all right, let's go to the next one. All right, all right. So here we have someplace else in the Bible. Okay, in verse 37, again, I will read it for the interest of time. Hini mikabetza mikol ha'aratzot asher hidachtim sham be'api uvachamati uveketzev gadol. We'll stop there. So hineni, what is hineni saying?
Behold,
Okay, hine is behold. That's the first part. You're right. So behold. Let me do it. Behold. Okay, and what is the suffix? What does the suffix tell us?
Me.
it,
Yeah,
I.
that's right. That's right. That's I. Behold, I. Right? So that's the first common singular suffix, right? When you see e at the end, it's like ko in Tagalog, right? Ko. We can put ko at the end of something, right? You can say mine, right? You can say mine that way. You can say it's mine, right? Okay. All right. Gusto ko, right? Like my wanting, right? In this case, we'd say gusto I, right? Hineni, behold I, mikabetsem. Does anybody know this word kibetz? Kibetz? Kibetz. It's okay if you do not know the verb, but we can still find out something about it, can't we? Okay. All right. I'll tell you the meaning of the verb in a moment. So, what can you tell me about this verb grammatically? Can you tell me some grammatical information, guys, about this verb? What do we know about it?
Me
What?
is from. Is plural.
Okay, but if it was from, we'd need a dagesh in the call kuf, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the word from,
Uh-huh.
right, mean, right? He can either be mean like that, not nice but mean, grr, or we put a dagesh in there, right? And we don't have the here and we
Mm-hmm.
don't have the dagesh, right? So it's not from. So it's actually
Ah.
part of the verbal form.
Oh, another
PL,
try. Contra.
What's that?
active participle.
Infinitive.
Ah, that's
Yeah.
right.
PL.
Woohoo!
Infinitive.
Great, great. Okay, so participle, it's a participle. Very good. Okay.
Yeah,
And what was the binyan?
PL,
PL. Excellent. How did you know it was PL?
because of the dakesh at the second
Yeah,
letter.
that's right. There's a dagesh right here. Good. Sorry. My hand hit the tab. Good. So everybody understands? We have that strengthening of the second radical. The second, most Hebrew verbs have three letters, most, right? Sometimes they disappear, but when the second one is doubled, that is an indication of the PL binyan, if there are no prefixes, okay? All right, and the mem is characteristic of participle, right? For a PL verb, right? The mem. PL, many of them have the mem. Hipil has the mem, pu'al has the mem, etc. So that's an indicator it's a participle. Okay, so if that's a participle in PL, then what is the mem at the end of the word telling us? What is that?
Plural.
Nope. If it was plural, it would be im, right? Im, like shusim, horses,
In.
right? It's not
Mm.
plural, it's am. What does am tell us?
Um.
Them.
Yes, exactly. Them, right? Remember your pronominal suffixes. It's third person, masculine, plural, right? Them. So mikabitsam. Okay, so whatever the verb is, you know it's a participle and it's them. Okay, so what this means, kibetz is to gather or to collect, to gather or to collect. Like in Egypt, when the Pharaoh sends the slaves out to collect stubble, they have the same quota, but they have to collect the stubble themselves. They have to collect the kash themselves. Um, it's this is the verb that's used. Kibetz means collect or to gather. So hini mikabetzam mikol ha'aratzot. Behold, I will gather. The tense is set by the previous verse, right? Remember, participles have no tense. If you've studied modern Hebrew, forget it. This is not the present tense. There is no tense at all in a participle. We have to figure out the tense based on the verbs that are in the verse or the verse before it, etc. Okay? All right. What does mikol? Mikol. Not bikol, mikol.
From all.
Yeah, from. Good. So here we have our from, right? So this is the from, and it's
Yeah.
behaving like it should. We have me with the dagash in there, right? Remember the noon has assimilated. It used
Uh-huh.
to be like this guy mean, right? And the noon went inside there. Good. From all, very good. From. Is it okay if I use math notation? That's all in math. Yeah, you learn a new symbol. All ha'aratzot. Ha'aratzot. What does what does aratzot mean? Aratzot.
The land.
Yeah, yeah, very
Plural.
very good, very good, very good. Okay, so ha of course is the article, right? And why is it pointed with a comets here? Why is there comets? Why isn't it patach?
It's the next letter is a guttural.
Exactly. Very good. And guttles cannot double, so we have compensatory lengthening with a long vowel ha here. Okay? And aratzot, very good. So this might be confusing if you learned, again, we're trying to recognize the words that you already know. So you have learned already eretz. You guys know what eretz is. Eretz, 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 Eretz Yisrael. La 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 la
Land.
la. Right? Land. Good. Okay. But as I think that was Bessie's voice correctly said,
Yes, yes.
there is a plural here, feminine plural. And that might be surprising because Eretz, it looks like a masculine, doesn't it? It looks like, because usually we have a hey at the end of words that are feminine, right? But it just so happens
Mhm.
that Eretz is one of those words like il, city, which looks like it's masculine, but it's actually feminine. So it's going to take these feminine endings here. Aratzot are lands. Okay? So this is Hashem. He's talking about what he's going to do for those of us who live in the diaspora, right? He's prophesying. He's giving us a prophecy. Behold, I will gather them from all of the lands, Asher,
Which
which, which, hidachtim. I don't think you guys know this word. Hidachtim. This is, okay? But you might not know the word, but you can tell me something about it. Okay?
hipil,
Yeah.
plural.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Okay. Okay. So we have hipil. The binyan is hipil. How did you recognize that it's hipil?
Hey and yod.
Yeah, that's right. Good. We have the hey. Yeah. Well, not the yod in this case. This one's kind of tricky. But but we do
Uh-huh.
have the hay. The hay's enough. The hay's enough. That's hifil, okay? All right, all right. So actually, the yod is part of the verb form. Ignore the very last letter. Let's delete the mem for a second.
Mhm.
Pretend there's no mem. Hidachti. Who's the one speaking? Is it first person, second, or third? Is it I, you, or
First.
first? Isn't it right? So in this case, the yod is not a suffix, right? It's part of t,
Mhm.
right? So the t
Mhm.
is telling us I. I. That's the speaker saying I. So what is the mem then?
Plural.
Yes, that's right. And notice the vowel is different. It's not like we had up above. Here we had ah. In this case, we just put the mem on the end. Okay, just gonna attach to the end. So it's they. Again, it's they. In this case, them. Right? Them. Third person masculine plural. So dacha is actually the verb, and you don't have to know this, but if you like, you can. Dacha. Dacha means to push, to drive, like to drive an arrow into someone. The Psalms, when the Psalms talk about, please stop driving your arrows into me, God. Drive, like to push through, to push through. Maybe part of the through. I can't fit it there. Through. Okay. All right. So in this case, it means he pushed us out of our land, right? So hidachtim. What does that mean then? Asher hidachtim.
Cause to push.
Yep. Okay. So the asher, it's still it's the them. It's meaning the children of Israel, right? So asher whom hidachtim, I drove them, like I pushed them. Sham. What's sham mean?
There.
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 That's right. I pushed them there. I drove them out of the land to there. From so this is from all the lands which or where I drove them there. Be'api. Okay. What is bait? What does bait mean?
In,
In. Very good. Good. Bait. In.
in,
In. Okay. Good. And what is the
and the
suffix?
suffix,
What's the suffix?
my,
Very good.
my,
My, right? Good. First person,
and
common,
that
singular.
af
So
is
what does off mean?
uh uh is it no I saw it's nostril before,
Yes.
Notes.
something like
Yes, yes.
fury,
Nostril.
fury.
Very good, very good. So literally it means nostril, right? In my nostril. I drove them there in my nostril, right? But of course we understand this is a Hebrew metaphor or an idiom. It means fury, like anger, right? Because some people, when they get very angry, I don't know if you've ever seen this before. I've seen it before in someone. The nostrils even move, like as they breathe, they're getting wide, they're getting small. It's kind of scary if you see
Like the
someone.
bull.
Yeah, yeah, like a bull. Exactly, exactly. The bull's a good example. Oh, and actually, that's even very interesting because one of the titles of God is Avil Yaakov, the mighty one of Jacob, which also means the bull of Jacob. So interesting. Okay, so in my anger, we could say, right? In my anger, uvechamati. Okay, so what is u
And
and? Okay, that's u. U is
in
and.
the
Yep, that's right. So the
command.
bait is in, very good. Bait. Let
The
me just
suffix, the
annotate.
suffix again, my.
That's right. Very good. Good, 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 good. Okay, so my in. So even if you don't know this word, the word is chema. Chema. The hey changes to a tav. Chema. Even if you don't know it, by virtue of the concept of Hebrew parallelism, you can probably figure out what the general meaning of it, right? In my anger and in my something. What's your guess?
Wrath.
Yeah, sure.
Wrath.
Perfect.
Okay.
Wrath. Wrath. We'll make that our guess. Wrath. That works perfectly. See, a lot of times, and Ibn Ezra, the sage Ibn Ezra, talks about this in his old grammar. He talks about how this is a medieval commentator in the Mikot Gedolot. He talks about how oftentimes, even if a word is a hapax legomemnon, which means it only occurs one time in the entire Bible, the parallelism can help you figure out the basic meaning of the word, right? Because Hebrew likes to do things in parallel oftentimes, especially when it's being poetic. And when it's being poetic, you're going to have rare words sometimes. So wrath is very good. Literally, the word chema, I'll write it over here on the left. Chema. Chema, just like the other word, the af meant nostrils. Chema means heat. Heat, like the temperature. And we do this in English, don't we? If someone's mad, you can say, oh, don't be so hot and bothered. Why are you so hot and bothered? Actually, it's a hendiatus in English, hot and bothered, right? But careful, he's very hot right now, right? He's mad, right? He's angry, right? So, not meaning he's good looking, but he's angry, right? He's hot, he's angry. Uvachemati, and it's the same thing in Hebrew. And wrath was actually a perfect guess. We'll leave it as wrath. In my anger and in my wrath. Uvaketzef.
And in.
And, okay, so the u is the and. By the way, why is it u and not v?
Begad kafat.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, actually, not. Oh, that's. I'm sorry. Begat Yafat is why we lost the dagesh. But that's not the rule why we have the u instead. You're close. I said exactly too soon. Because I don't multitask so well.
Yeah. No two Shoah together.
Okay, actually, that's good. You could say
No,
that.
it's a bump.
I was thinking of the other rule, but you're right. That's one. So we can't have two schwas in a row at the beginning of the word, right? So you cannot point it as va, because that would violate that rule. We'd have the, and then we'd have the. You can't do that at the beginning. And there's another rule that it's also violating. So there's two reasons why it's ooh. What's the other one?
The bump.
Bump, right? Bump schwa. Bump.
Is that in?
Yes, it means in. Yes, in. Yep. Yep. In, or it could be with also, right? Bait can mean in or with. Bump. So because this is a bait, right, we make the buh in bump. You could say that's the reason for the ooh, or you could also say it's the bump schwa rule. So in this case, it's also schwa. Either one, pick your rule. So both are correct. It only takes one. Okay? And with or in and in ketzef. All right, so this is another parallel word. What do you think ketzef means? We're running out of synonyms in English. It's going to mean the similar thing to this guy. And, huh?
And
Yeah, anger. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to erase the wrath from the previous
anger.
one, and I'm going to say anger for the previous one.
And
And
move the wrath on the other
let's
side.
move the wrath. Yeah, I think we're building, right? We're building. We're building. Okay. In my, the problem is off also means anger, right? So maybe in my irritation, right? In my irritation, and in my anger, and in my wrath. And now this is a noun, right? It's a noun.
Anger.
Now we have an
The next one is
adjective.
great.
Yeah, exactly.
Gadol.
So this qualifies a lot better for wrath, right? Gadol is great, exactly. So in my great wrath, vaha shivotim. Okay, so let's break this word apart.
And
By the way, if you need to go, we're at the hour point. We'll just finish up this slide, and then maybe this I'll let you go. Anybody can go if you like now, but if you want to stay, we'll just do a bit more. Okay, so vav.
and
Okay, so you're right. Vav often means and, but we need to learn to be flexible with vav, right? So vav can mean
then
and, then. It can also be the vav
but
emphaticum, which is an exclamation point. right? Sometimes we just don't translate. It's just making it stronger, right? You're right. It can also be but. Very good. But it can be or. Although we also have a whole separate word for or. Oh, but yeah. Okay, it can mean when, right? So really, the conjunction, we must be flexible. Make it sound good in your translation. Okay, v'hashivotim. Okay, so this is interesting. So what is the mem at the end of this word?
Plural.
That's a good.
Plural.
It okay. It is a kind of plural. It's a suffix though. What does this suffix tell us?
And
Interrogative. Ha.
Wait, the mem. What does the mem tell us?
Mem. Plural. Male.
Plural.
them.
Both.
Them. The same as this guy up here, right? The same.
Mhm.
Them, right? We have the same pattern, right? And so look at the pattern. We also
Mhm.
have the T at the end, right? So the T is part of the verb then, right? It's not just telling us a general plural, it's part of the verb, right? So do not think that it's team as in a normal plural, but it's actually part of the verb. What does the T tell you? Who's doing the action?
Me.
Yeah,
Us.
that's right.
We.
Not we. We would be nu. Nu. T is
No.
I,
Okay.
right? I. Okay. So hashiv. Hashiv is the verb then. Hashiv. Hashiv. So
She.
what is the binyan of this verb? What do you think the binyan is?
Hashib.
It's kind of tricky to recognize this one. It's a bit tricky.
Hmm.
I'll give you a hint. And one of you said, "Hey,
Hip.
interrogative." That
Hip.
was a good guess. You're right. It's kind of
Hey.
tricky. It
Hip.
does it does look like it, right? But it's actually not. It's part of the binyan. The hey is telling us the verb form here. Okay, I'll tell you. The binyan is hipil. 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 Right? So the verb is very tricky. This is actually, you know this verb, but to recognize it's kind of difficult, right? The verb is a hollow verb, right? And here's the verb. I'll write it over here. Sheen, shurik, bait. Shuv. What does shuv mean?
Shuv. Return.
Yeah,
To
return.
return.
Very good, very good. And so what happens is when the middle letter of the verb is a vav or a yod, that's what we call a hollow verb. Hollow. It's hollow. Meaning, just like a hollow tree or something else that's hollow, it can break very easily. That will disappear. And that's what happened here. Look, it's gone. All we have is a little hint, the hirik, that this is a hifil, right? We like to have the hirik before the third letter. So that is still there. And we have the actual hey itself. So to cause to return. So I will bring them back, is what it says. And I think this vav, you could either say or I think it's probably like the Espanol upside down
Then.
exclamation. Yeah, I think it's making it stronger. I will bring them back. That whole thing means I will bring them back, and he's excited about it. El hamakom hazeh. What's that mean?
To the standing. To this standing place. To this standing place.
Good. Hold on. What is happening? There we go. Yeah, good, good. El is to or unto. To. Hamakom is the noun. Hazeh is the adjective. Right? So literally to the place, this one. Vehoshavtim lavetach. Okay? So this is very similar. We just have a bit of a change here because of the proximity. It's complicated, the proximity to the last word. And I will bring them back. Lavetach. Who knows what betach means?
Beta. In the midst.
That's a
Beto.
good guess. That would be latoch. Latoch.
Yeah, Bato.
Betach, in modern Hebrew, this means something like insurance. But in biblical Hebrew, it's to trust, right? To trust, the verb batach is to trust, right? Batachti b'Adonai. I trust in Adonai, or I trusted in Adonai. But this is a noun, right? So really, in the noun form, it means something like security, right? You can see why that became insurance, right? Security. So I will bring them back lavetach, meaning like securely. They will dwell. They want it to be. Remember, when we're purged from the land, we're scared of everything, right? A leaf will blow and it makes us scared, right? We run away. Oh my gosh, what is it, right? But now, instead of having all these people hate us and our names being an enina, a bygone, like a curse word, oh, stupid Jew, right? Instead of that, he's going to bring us back securely now. Securely is what it's saying. Literally for security, right? Or for trusting, something like that. We have another word that comes from this. You might be familiar from me preaching on this when we talked about how when you have emunah for long enough, what is emunah?
Truth.
That's emet. Emunah.
Oh.
Emunah? What's emunah? Anybody? Emunah.
My
Um,
faith.
Faith. When you have faith for a long time, faith is like gas going into a gas tank. All right. So the longer you have it, your tank is filling up, and in Jewish understanding, you're filling it up with what's called betachon. It's related to this word here, betachon.
mm,
Betachon. Okay. Betachon. Betachon. Sorry, it's a potach. Betachon means confidence. Literally confidence in Hashem. Confidence. Right? And it's related to the idea that you've seen that he doesn't let anything too bad happen to you that you can't recover from, right? We've learned already from our walk with him, from our faith with him, so that now our gas tank is full of betachon. And when you have full betachon, they like feed each other. It's easier to have faith once you have that history of betachon. It's harder for someone who's kind of new, right? They haven't had faith for so long, and then maybe they trip, something bad happens to them, and so they could deplete their betachon. Right? It's like a challenge. They're struggling with their faith. But after you've gone through the fire, after you've dealt with atheists at the university or whatever it is that you had to deal with, and you come out alive still, your betachon grows and grows. And then the chances of someone taking your faith away are much reduced. Like the bigger the betachon, it's like feeding the
Mm.
faith. So they feed one another. Having faith feeds our confidence in him. When we ask him for something, please do not let them kill my family member, we have the confidence, we have a peace that we know he's not going to let it happen, right? He's not going to, because we're in sync with his ruach, right? You guys understand the concept?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it the same as assurance, Rob?
Yes. Assurance is also good. Yeah. Confidence, assurance. That's another good
Having
word.
assurance.
Yes. You can say assurance.
Yes.
That's good. Assurance. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. Good. Assurance. Yeah. Confidence or assurance.
okay.
Yeah. Good. Good. Any other questions? We're almost finished here. Okay, and then finally, the last verse, maybe I'll just fly through 38 real quickly, but I think you guys can translate. This verse, you guys know all the words for sure. Okay, so all of these words occur at least 850 times in the Bible. So I know you guys know them. It just might be recognizing that's the issue. So it says, "V'hayu li le'am v'ani echye lahem le'elohim." Okay, so v'hayu li, v'hayu. What does the vav mean?
And
And
I will be.
almost, almost, almost. That would be
And
v'hayati. This is v'hayu.
and
And
they will be to
Yeah.
me
Yes.
people.
ayun,
Very good,
oo,
very good,
they
very
will
good.
be. Oo.
Yon. Okay, so they, right?
Yun.
They.
I think we're learning the
Tama,
other way around.
tama.
We're also learning Tagalog. Oo.
It's funny because tama in Tagalog is like correct, right? Right, correct. And in modern Hebrew they say betach, right? It's also from betachon,
Tama.
betach. But in Hebrew, tama means to become unclean. Right? Like from Tame, like to
Yes.
become unclean. Like if you kill the chicken cruelly, it's now not kosher. It's Tama. It's Tame.
Oh, and in the root crop potato or kamote,
Uh huh.
when there's some blemish, it's called tanga.
Oh, interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, every once in
Yeah,
a while there's a word that pops up in
yeah,
Tagalog that seems like it's from Hebrew, right? Like even anak, anak meaning children, right? In Hebrew, that's giant. But that's how cognates work. When a word moves from one language to another, sometimes it's got the general domain. It
yeah.
still has to do about the size, but it changes. It could be the opposite even, right? Instead of a child, he's a giant. Okay, Li, what is Li?
To me,
Yeah, to
For
me.
me,
To me, that's right. Or for me, exactly. Okay, so this is how you say ownership, remember? So if I want to say I have something, I say Li. It is to me. So Hayu means they were. What does Vehayu mean?
Vehayu.
They were mine. They were
I will.
mine.
Well, the vav changes the time, right? Instead of hayu they were, it becomes
They
nice.
will be mine.
They will be. Right? I just heard someone chanting the ahavta, right? V'hayuhu, and
Yeah.
they will be hadarim ha'ele, these things, these words. Yeah, nice. Okay, so, and they will be li, mine. They'll be mine. Or to me, they'll be mine. Le'am. What is le'am? I.
People.
Yes.
People.
Yes.
People.
That's right. For a people. Right?
For
Like,
a
for
people.
a people.
For people.
Va'ani,
And I will be.
and I.
I will be to them.
Echye will be. Very good. Echye. I will be. And notice also, echye, this is kind of a loaded term. This also harkens back to the moment, the result of what we read before, early on in our language lab, when we were talking about God knew. Vayeda Elohim. He knew, right? We had those four things that happened, right? Remember first Shema, right? And then Zachar, right? And then Ra'ah, and then Yada, right? This whole sequence of God becoming involved with his creation. We have the Ehyeh is what's called an inclusio. It takes us back to the moment when God reveals himself to Moshe, right? When he's in the burning bushes there, and God says, "What name do I tell them sent me?" And God doesn't tell him his name, does he? Everybody thinks he tells Moses the name at this point. He doesn't. Instead, he takes the verb from which his name is related to and he makes it different. He says, Ehyeh asher ehyeh. I will be as I have been, or I will be as I will be. And that's what this Ehyeh here is doing. It's a deep connection back to that moment when he's sending Moses to act. He's acting by the people for the people by raising up Moses. So Ehyeh, so it's kind of got a double entendre here. It's literally in this verse, but it's also showing all the way back to that part in the Torah when he acts by revealing himself to Moses and says, Ehyeh. So here, Ehyeh, I will be, lahem. What's lahem?
To them.
Yep,
To
to them.
them.
To them, or for them, right? To them, le'elohim.
To a
Their God.
Yeah, see, here we get
their
kind of,
God.
it's tricky in English, right? Because it sounds weird. For
Yeah.
God, or right, and that's because what you're stumbling across is the last little lesson from today that lamed sometimes, rarely, sometimes can mean the same thing as kaf, right? I will
Like.
be like God, right? I will be as God, right? For them, they will be as a people, and I will be as a God, right? It just sounds weird to say to or there or for. We learned this from Ugaritic that this actually happens sometimes. So, okay, any comments or questions? Okay, you guys did great.
Comments? Yes.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. We enjoyed it.
Yay, me too, me too. It was nice fellowship together with you guys. All
Me
right,
too. Yes.
have a good Shabbat.
Love the faith.
What's
I
that?
love the
Rob,
faith
what
and
passage
confidence.
We have minion. We have minion.
I know. Look at that. Yeah, we had 13. That was great. Thanks for coming, everyone. Baruch Hashem. So same time next week we'll do this
Excuse me,
again.
what
Baruch
passage is
Hashem.
the
Oh, someone's
what
asking for
passage is the
what?
what passage? Passage?
Oh, right. You're right. I'm sorry. I did not show you the passage. Good question. Here it is. It is Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 38.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys. Shabbat shalom. You
Shabbat
can
shalom.
you can say
Shabbat
that on Friday
shalom.
afternoon. Shabbat
Bye
shalom.
bye.
Shabbat
Brakasha,
shalom.
brakasha. Be well.